2021 has certainly been a year. Outriders, fake Resident Evil, Deathloop. The AAA titles haven't really done it for me this year. Thankfully, I've been able to rely on the trusty old indie scene to keep me happy. I put a couple hundred hours into the new DLC for Streets of Rage 4, I had a hilarious time playing Kindergarten on stream, and I finally got to play Celeste, which is the best platformer I've ever played. Celeste was so good that I was in the mood for some more platforming action. It was time to check out The Messenger, an old-school, throwback platformer made in homage to the classic Ninja Gaiden games on the NES. I only played those games a few times as a kid. My friends had them, so I got to play at their house. In my house, I was too busy torturing myself with Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles 1, and Back to the Future. Apparently, only garbage was allowed to enter my front door. I liked what I played of Ninja Gaiden, but I actually liked Batman a lot more, which is kinda similar with its platforming aspects. Playing The Messenger brought back a flood of memories for me, and nostalgia is a hell of a drug. But it's fleeting. You get over that initial impact of, wow, this is so cool, it takes me back like 25 years, I love it. Once that feeling starts to fade, the quality of the experience needs to step up and fill that gap. And that's why The Messenger is so great. That's why Celeste and Streets of Rage 4 are so great. In recent years, we've seen a lot of new games try to bring back 90s gameplay and graphics. We've had side-scrolling beat-em-ups, low-polygon first-person shooters, 8-bit RPGs, pixel art platformers, PlayStation 1-style survival horror titles, you name it. There's been a renaissance of classic 90s game design thanks to the indie market. But there's a dangerous trap to be found in this trend. To simply rely on the superficial appeal of style and not focus on pushing the gameplay forward to meet modern standards. Look, you can only judge the quality of something based on what you already know. This used to be impressive to us in the 90s when we were watching videos on the internet. This was an incredible cutscene with graphics that blew our minds. And the games in the 90s didn't have to do much to keep our attention. They just needed solid controls, fun action, and a nice art style. When I was a kid, I could play Double Dragon all day, just doing the same punch and kick attacks level after level. It's all we knew. I'm not saying the game is bad now, it's a well-made game of its time and an important piece of gaming history. But today, after 30 years of innovation, just hitting punch and kick for hours isn't something that interests me anymore. I used to play the X-Men arcade game all the time with my friends, but if I had it today, I'd play it for an hour or two for some nostalgic fun, and then move on to something else. It's why I had a hard time getting into Proteus, which is one of the new throwback indie shooters. It looks great, I love the 90s aesthetic and the run-and-gun attitude, but after a few levels, it didn't feel like anything was changing or pushing me into any cool new system. And I guess that's the point, you know? To look and play like an old game. But I'm not looking for an old game. I'm looking for a new game that celebrates the old while trying to do something really interesting. Celeste and Streets of Rage 4 did this perfectly by having an old-school feel but meeting modern standards of player engagement, always introducing new features to keep things exciting, and asking the player to master a variety of interesting skills that push them further into the game. The Messenger easily could have been a game that sells itself on nostalgia and just has you running through levels slashing enemies. It could have been something that you just play for an hour or two and you've seen all the game has to offer. But man, it is not that. This game not only significantly improves on the original design of Ninja Gaiden by meeting modern standards, but it actually fixes some things that negatively impacted the Ninja Gaiden experience. For example, you can recover in the air with a jump after getting hit, so you're not doomed to fall in a death pit. But funny enough, the Messenger actually keeps some of the bizarre technical buggy aspects that made Ninja Gaiden the game that it is. Enemies respawn when the screen scrolls back, which keeps the pressure on you. You can pass through the edges of the screen sometimes. You can hit enemies through walls, and a few of them can hit you. This stuff may seem like total crap to new players, but I gotta say it made me smile. Every level has entrances to a store where you can buy upgrades like a gliding move, a downward attack when you're gliding, raising your max health, causing enemies to drop energy for your projectile, so there's always something to work towards. You buy upgrades with orbs that you find around the levels. They come from killing enemies and from hitting these little spots set up for platforming. That's a nice bit of extra motivation for killing enemies and for engaging in the platforming options. The platforming in this game is simply incredible. Right away, you're introduced to the main mechanic of the game, jump recovery after attacking. So if you jump at this spot and you hit it, you can now jump again. These spots string together to create really fun platforming sections. It works from hitting enemies as well. And pretty early in the game, you can unlock an ability to hit enemy projectiles, so you can use their fireballs or whatever as an opportunity to get a second jump. There's so much you can do with this mechanic, and it never stops being fun. And one of the reasons it's so fun is because you have to use it if you want to get far. Eventually you'll get a grappling hook and things really start opening up. The art style of the Messenger is breathtaking. The things these guys do with 8-bit graphics is really impressive. Backgrounds are gorgeous and every level has a unique feel to it, both in art and enemy types. And just when I thought I couldn't be impressed anymore, about 4 hours into the game, I entered a portal that sent me into the future where the game changes into 16-bit Genesis-style graphics. I couldn't believe it. Even the sound processing changes to make it sound like it's coming from a Sega system. The music, as you heard, is phenomenal. Every level's theme is perfectly crafted to suit the mood. It's all really catchy and sounds like authentic music you'd hear from a 90s 8-bit title. I've been singing this stuff for days. Much like Celeste, in every level it feels like something new and interesting to learn is being presented to you, and the game makes you learn it too. For example, maybe you haven't really been trying to bounce from multiple objects. The game definitely wants you to be experimenting with it, it's right in your face. But yeah, maybe you're mostly just playing through levels by doing single bounces one at a time. Well, then you get to this boss, and she's really hard to hit unless you can get her when she's hanging in the air. She's out of reach, and the only way to hit her during that time is to do a slash and jump from one enemy into a slash and jump on the next guy to land a hit on her and put her in a stun state. If you've been stringing together jumps in the earlier levels, it's a piece of cake. If not, now it's time to get good. Boss fights will take a long time if you don't try to figure this stuff out. There's a dragon fight that seems to go on forever because when you jump to hit him, he backs off and you can't get another hit. So I started doing a slash jump into another slash jump into another slash jump into a series of air glide and downward attack. It took me a lot of attempts to kill this guy, but when I got this method down, I took him out fast. It was satisfying and I came out a better player. I'm a big fan of player accountability in video games, and in a game like this, that means punishment for dying. Old Nintendo games traditionally had a lives system. If you died, you were sent back to the beginning of the level, or if you're lucky, you're playing a game that has some kind of checkpoint system or passwords. And once all your lives are gone, many games are simply over and you gotta restart back from the beginning. It's just the way games were back then. They were brutal. But that's how you got your money's worth. A lot of these games were only a handful of levels, and the challenge was trying to make it all the way through without losing all your lives. You could spend months, years even, trying to beat some of these games. Thank God the Messenger doesn't play like that. It has a checkpoint every few rooms, though sometimes you'll have to make it through like 6 or 7 rooms before you find a checkpoint. It mixes it up pretty well. So you have to repeat some sections when you die, but not the whole level. And when you die, this creature spawns next to you, and for the next few rooms, he consumes all the orbs you pick up. It's brilliant. It makes it so that the more you die, the less orbs you're gonna have to buy your upgrades. That's wonderful motivation for learning to play better. It's a great idea too, because they could have simply deducted orbs upon death. Instead, they have this guy follow you for a while, taking everything you find, like he's rubbing it in your face. This little bastard, he really makes you not want to die. I love it so much. Every level of the Messenger kept me interested in what I'm doing and motivated to learn more and get better with my new options. Even the story is pretty cool. It's a simple story about being the one chosen to deliver a scroll to the top of the mountain, but the characters you meet along the way are pretty funny. I had a few big laughs playing this game, and I enjoyed reading all the dialogue. It gets a little too meta at times, but it's charming nonetheless. So it's been all praise so far, but there comes a point in this game when things change. It's a bold change, one that I applaud. It's just a change that I'm not all that excited by. Eventually you get to a point where you have every skill, you're getting really good at the platforming, and you defeat another one of the big bosses. This is maybe 7 hours in for me, which is already a pretty nice length for a game like this, and I was starting to wonder where the game was going to go next. Honestly, I would have been happy continuing on this linear set of levels, just being presented with crazier platforming puzzles and enemy placements and bosses. But the messenger actually shifts genres mid-game. You find yourself in a temple that has a bunch of portals that take you back to levels you've already completed. And now the levels all have these spots where you can switch at will between 8-bit and 16-bit, past and future. The environments change depending on the time period. Different pathways open up. You'll be in a place you were in like 5 hours ago, but if you go into the future version, now there's an opening somewhere that takes you to a part of the level you didn't even know was there. It's really exciting. The game has completely shifted from a linear platformer to a Metroidvania game. Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of Metroid or Castlevania. I'm not saying they're bad. It's becoming exhausting having to specify that every time, that just because I don't personally enjoy it doesn't mean I'm saying it's bad. But when it comes to these fast-paced action games, I like a solid linear level progression. I don't need every game to be linear. I love wandering around a big map in survival horror games, solving puzzles and planning smart routes, and the occasional open world game taking side quests and all that. Going through these areas multiple times isn't very interesting to me, okay? And after a few hours of it, I had to admit that I wasn't enjoying the game nearly as much as I was before it became a Metroidvania game. But that's just me. I'll bet there's plenty of fans of this game that came to love it even more when it suddenly became a backtracking Metroidvania exploration title. I'm happy for them. It's not for me. And even though it became something I'm not interested in playing anymore, the solid 7 to 9 hours of fun I had makes The Messenger an easy recommendation. Everyone should check this out if you're interested in a classic 90s style action platformer featuring deep gameplay, fun level design, and a surprisingly entertaining story. If you think the genre change is right up your alley, you're gonna love it. If it kinda turns you off, I still say give it a go. There's a lot of fun to be had, and who knows, maybe you'll like the twist more than I did. And if you're one of my younger viewers and all you know are the modern AAA budget, amazing graphics games and you've never played something that looks like this is a great starting point. Thanks for watching this video. Like the video if you haven't already, it helps the channel. See you next time.